Hey everyone, this is 𝗏𝗏𝗚𝗚𝗡 with Creative Retail Talks, and I'm so excited to have Jo Pearson with us today. Hi, this is 𝗏𝗏𝗚𝗡𝗏. Thanks for joining the Creative Retail Talks podcast today, where we will be discussing the latest in life, business, and retail. Jo has been a creative force in the creative industry for many years. She has been literally the creative face of Michaels during her career there. If you went into a Michaels store for a period of about 15 or 20 years, you'd probably see Jo's face up on the TV in the store. You would see her on online videos as Michaels grew their online video presence. And also, we're going to talk about this today. She did a little stint on a TV show called Craft Wars that I'm looking forward to hearing Jo tell us some stories from also. So Jo, thank you for being with us today. So excited to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited too.
Well, it's going to be a fun conversation. And for anyone who doesn't know you, they're going to find out this is going to be a very fun, lively conversation. So I've never had a conversation with you that wasn't just a blast. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thank you.
So let's go back in time a little bit. So I just kind of gave a little bit of overview of your career at Michaels and in the creative industry. So way back when you were starting your career, what drew you to the creative industry and how did you kind of get started in the creative industry?
You know what? It had to start back when I was a little girl, because when I was like 10 years old, I would make pot holders and sell them to my aunts so that I had more money to buy more stuff. So,
awesome.
Then it just kind of evolved. And, way back then, there weren't the kind of craft stores, though, to buy our supplies. So we were really at the mercy of wherever we could find them.
Yeah.
And my aunt lived in Chicago. So when I'd visit, she would take me to Lee Ward's, and that was a big deal. And then I actually even went to school to be a medical assistant and worked for about a year and thought, this is not for me. And one day I was out to lunch with some girlfriends. This was back in Chesterfield, Missouri, when I first lived here back then. And there was a sign, and it was an MJ Design store being built, and they were looking for people to help set up the store. Mm-hmm. And I thought, So I went in and applied. And I set up the store, and that's when Carol Vanoy worked for MJ Designs, if anybody remembers her. And oh my gosh, I just thought she was amazing. And I said to her, you know what? I want to be you one day when I grow up. Well, I continued working at the store, and then I just kind of went from store to store here in St. Louis. So then I was an assistant manager at the South County store. I would write a letter to Michaels once a week saying, you know what, you need me to do projects. And Jerry Payton, I think, finally got sick of hearing that. And they brought me down there and I interviewed, and I picked up everything and moved by myself to Texas and went to work for Michaels.
Awesome.
And, I spent 30 years there.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of crazy.
What year was that you made the move and started at Michaels?
You know what? That would have been in about 1987, 88, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of late 80s. Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So
well, I'll tell you what, there's a couple of things from that first part of your story that I love that I want to highlight real quick. So one is you were attracted to creativity at a young age, and it sounds like had family supporting that and nurturing that. And I think that's wonderful.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then also it sounds like with Carol at MJ Designs, you had someone that you were able to kind of look up to and kind of follow in their footsteps a little bit.
Oh, she was just my idol. I love Carol. And, that's when then Mike started bringing the creative designers at stores, and he'd bring them to Texas, and we would spend a week making all of the samples to bring back to our stores. And that was, again, that was just that was a fun week.
Yeah. I bet a lot of creativity going on then, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I interviewed Lawrence Hoffman for a previous podcast, and obviously he had very close ties to MJ Designs and Mike Doopy, as did his father. But tell me your perspective a little bit on, I don't know how much you were around Mike Doopy or the kind of the culture of MJ Designs in the role you were in, but What are some of the things you remember about Mike Doopie and MJ Designs?
You know what? I have to tell you, Mike, and I got to meet him a couple times, and he absolutely was a merchandising genius.
Yeah.
Mike, you know what? Mike knew when to get into something, and Mike knew when to get out.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was just, it was amazing between the pogs that he had, and then, you know, Bead Alley. And it was just, you know, he just knew how to do it. I can remember being in a store one time, and he'd come in, and if something was on an end cap and it wasn't selling, Mike would get on the intercom and he would say, everything on that end cap is a penny. And it was just
clearance it on the spot, huh?
Absolutely. It was like, you know what? I'm not going to mark it down 50 and then this and that. It was like, it's out of here because I've got something new coming in.
Yeah.
And that was just the mentality of how he worked.
Well, I only met Mike a few times, and it was later in his life. But everyone that has described him to me has described him that way, as just this merchandising genius, and really knowing how to time trends and when to put product in the stores at the right time. And sounds like that was a great environment to work in from a retail standpoint.
Well, it really was. It was amazing because, you know, we didn't go home with paychecks. You know, we spent half our money there at the store. It was crazy.
Hey, at least it was some good access to product, right?
That is true. That's true.
Fill up those craft rooms. Tell me, along that journey, that 30-year plus journey through MJ Designs and Michaels, I'm going to pull out a few for us to talk about, but just from your perspective, what are some of your favorite memories along that journey?
Oh, gosh. You know what? I was lucky enough to be one of the people that was selected to be on the SBA team, which most people didn't know what that was, but it stood for Standard Basic Assortment. Yep. And that was before you put numbers and things, or you scanned anything. Everything was, so I was in the art department, and we all met down at, I think we were down in Arizona. And all of the department managers met, and we went over every item that was in our department, deciding, should we keep it? Should we get rid of it? And that was how the basics, so that all the stores had the same thing. Because way back, you know, the managers used to be able to have somebody come in the back door and say, hey, I've got some shelves I want to sell you. And he could buy them because they had checkbooks. Well, then that all went away. And, you know, then all the stores got to be to where everybody had the same thing, and somebody couldn't come in and say, well, you know, I bought it at this store. Well, I'm sorry, we don't have it. So that really, you know, made it to where everybody had the same thing, and, you know, same price and all of that, you know, so that was a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, and things just, as things would come in and change, you know, we all got to kind of change together. And that was, you know, that was a good thing.
Yeah. Who are some of the most creative people you've worked with on that journey? You mentioned Carol, but who else stands out to you? And I know there's been a bunch, but tell me a few that just kind of come to your mind when you think of some of the most creative people you've worked with.
Well, you know what? Gail Zeck used to come in my store, and she would sell me the art books. Gail was an absolute, you know, she was very creative too. And then, you know, there's the people, and some of them people are going to remember and some of them aren't, you know, the Pat Olsons of this world, who used to, you know, be the fabulous painters and wrote books and books and books. And of course, you know, then I've met Tim Holtz, and we've worked together. And of course, Kathy, Crafty Chica. Love her.
And she's been on the podcast already as well. Great creative soul. Yes.
Chris Williams from Plaid. And then, of course, Tracia Williams. She's just one of my dear, dear friends. And I just love Tracia. You know, Kim Bauer. Kim was one of the first people who ever, when the dimensional paint came out, she wrote all of Plaid's first books on dimensional paint, you know. And those people are still such good, dear friends that it's just, you know, it's wonderful to have those friends.
That's great. That's great.
You
Those
know?
relationships are really what it's all about, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. You know what? We made them for life, and we still have
Yeah.
those friends. You know, those of us are still lucky enough to still be around.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So you're telling me about you were very persistent in trying to get this job at Michaels. So you get to Michaels, and tell me what your role started out as at Michaels and kind of how that evolved, and what your career at Michaels looked like.
Well, you know what? When I first came, they really weren't doing project sheets. Mike was. But, you know, at that point, then when Michaels came around, and Bucky Farner, who they hired at the same time as me, he did the floral and I did all the craft stuff. And they actually put us in a room out at the, you know, the store used to be called Moscatel's. Because at that time we couldn't have Michael's stores in the Texas area because of, you know, that whole arrangement with Mike Doobie. And we got out there and we would take stuff off of the shelves. That's how we, you know, got our merchandise, because we didn't, you know, we didn't have anything. Well, we sat down to write instructions, and I'm like, well, we don't even have a computer or a printer. And Bucky and I went over when nobody was looking. I can't believe that we did this. And we found a printer and we just took it and we brought it out. We brought it out there to Muscatel's. And I'm like, I'm surprised we didn't get fired right then and there. But so we just started, you know, doing project sheets. And at that time, they didn't photograph them. We had a gal who physically drew all of the project sheets up.
Wow.
It was insane. She was the most phenomenal artist. That's when, you know, paper twist was available. And oh my gosh, we made every animal and thing out of paper twist that there was. Well, we finally got a real office at the corporate office where everybody else was. And then they actually fixed this up with the studio so that then I could start calling my vendor friends like you guys at Randy Putnam, and then say, hey, you know what? I need paint, or I need this, or I need whatever. And you guys would just send me, you know, everybody was so phenomenal. They would send us everything we needed. Well, then we could kind of set up a studio, you know, and then I was able to hire a couple other girls that came to work for me. And one, you know, a couple of them are even still there. But so we would just every day, they would say, okay, this is what we're buying. We need a project for it to support it. And that's what, you know, that's what we would do is we would work with the buyers, and we'd walk the planograms then and kind of give our 2 cents worth of what we thought, I don't think that's such a good idea. Or, you know, of course, I can't say that they really always listened to us, but some of them did. I worked with some pretty great buyers at, you know, at Michael's. So, you know, it just became more and more. And then we started doing some TV with Aleen's. And I would go out to California and I'd pack up all my stuff and I'd send all my projects out there and we'd tape TV. And so that's kind of how I got into the whole, you know, I was the spokesman and kind of got to do the TV stuff. Well, then it just skyrocketed. Over the 30 years, I got to do the Good Morning America show and Handmade by Design. And of course, then you mentioned Craft Wars, which was just, that was the ultimate. So, you know, we just got to do all that fun TV. And then I tell you what, I think probably one of my most favorite things was when Michael's had the big 18-wheeler craft truck.
Yes, I remember that. Okay, so describe that for people. So describe what that was and how you guys used it.
Well, you know what? It literally was an 18-wheeler, but the sides on each side in the middle of the truck, the sides would pop out and it would expand, and that became a classroom. And so when people, you know, we'd go to fairs and, you know, we went to, you know, different festivals and things, and we'd take the truck there and we would just open it up. And before that, I would set up, okay, here's what we're going to do, you know, because everything was free. They came onto the truck and we had 2 different projects going on either side of the truck. And they would just come in. So it had to be a quick project. You know, it wasn't something that, you know, they didn't have time to paint the Mona Lisa. They could come in, you know, paint a popsicle stick or two or a rock, and then, and then off they went. That was, I think over time, they said that we probably had over 100,000 people that came onto the truck, and everything was donated to me by my vendors. You know, again, I'd get on the phone, the girls would just say, oh, Jo's at it again, she needs something. And I'd be on the phone and I didn't even have to beg. All I had to say was, hey, I'm doing such and such. And they would ship me whatever I needed, you know. And during that adventure, I have to tell you, the best part was, though, we got to go to the St. Louis to the Busch Stadium. And I actually got to throw the ball out during a game, which was
I don't think I knew that. Oh, wow. Yeah. I remember the truck going there. I didn't know you threw out the first pitch.
Yeah. So
how did you do? Did you go to the catcher?
Oh my goodness. You know, I practiced at home in my backyard. Tape off, honest to goodness. And when I got there, I even probably came up halfway, you know, all the way to home plate. Honey, I still didn't get it there. It was, you know, you're up there on that great big telethon, the
Jumbotron,
Jumbotron. And my family's all in the audience, and I'm going, I didn't even get it. I didn't even get it halfway there.
Hey, those are the most memorable first pitches, is the one that, the ones that look really bad. That's the ones people.
Yeah, well, guess what? I won that one. So that was a fun big deal. And then, you know, the truck kind of got taken away, and I was really sad to see that happen. But it was awesome.
Your toy,
you know,
the toy got taken away.
I know. Yeah, I know. You know, another big thing that happened during Michael's whole time is we actually taught on 2 different cruises. And again, it was really funny. It didn't cost them. They paid for their cruise, and then they paid $50 to come and craft with us for that whole week. But in return for that, I bet you, because they all went home with a rolling scrapbook cart and all of the stuff, they probably went home with $1,000 worth of.
That's a heck of a deal.
So we had a ball doing that. That was a lot of hard work, though. We really did. I mean, they think, oh, that was easy. Well, just coordinating, getting all of the materials onto the ship was no easy feat.
How many people were you guys preparing for those?
You know, the first time we had 50 or 100. And the second time we said, well, that's not going to happen, because that was it was just too many to try and handle. I think the last time it was 50. And it was still hard to try and, you know, but we learned a lot from the first cruise for sure. But
what a cool experience. Although a lot of work, you probably didn't get to lay out on the beach a whole lot on the excursions, but
we didn't do no laying on the beach.
But a fun place to be teaching people how to craft. So that's really cool.
It was. We had we had parties. We had a glitter party, and one of the cruises we went on was over Halloween, and so we had a costume.
That's fun.
Yeah, they had to make costumes out of duct tape. And so, we did some crazy stuff, but it was all fun. I still have a couple people that took those classes that I still talk to on Facebook that took the class. And yes. So see, it's those connections. I know, it's those memories and the people that you meet. It's amazing. It's amazing.
That's great. That's great. Well, you have gotten to do so many neat, memorable things along that journey. That's great.
You know what? I used to have people that would kind of follow me around, like when we'd go to CHA, and somebody'd say to me, you know what? She's waiting for you to kick off because she wants your job. And then one year I had to go on a scooter because I had hip surgery. And the whoever it was that said that to me said, see, they're thinking you're getting closer. Now you're on a scooter. She's getting ready to fall.
Target on your back.
I did.
So let me ask you this. So you're a creative person. You're not what you would consider the corporate type, I would say, right?
Right.
But you were operating in a large corporate environment. So tell me what that was like. So running the craft room and a lot of the craft activities in a big corporate culture. I'm sure there was some tension there at times. What did that look like? You know what?
Sometimes I really was the oddball out. But this may not sound right, but you really do have to learn to play the corporate game.
Yeah.
If you can say it in that way. You might have to edit that out. I don't know. But, I had the buyers and them embraced us because we really helped them. We made their stuff look good,
Absolutely.
And,
yeah.
So sometimes
like
it was hard.
Group. You're also like a focus group. Yeah.
I know we are. I know. And you know what? In saying that, I have to throw this in here because, I'd have vendors all the time, including yourself. And you'd say, hey, I've got this new widget and I need you to tell me if it works.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would take it in and we would test it. And I always told my vendors, and I truly meant this, I'm going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
If I don't think it works, or I don't think it looks good, or it doesn't do this, or it doesn't do that, I'm going to tell you that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Absolutely. People need to know the truth for sure.
Yeah. And, and there were times where I would find things that it's like, you know what? This doesn't work. This nozzle or whatever it was doesn't work. And they literally would listen to us and go back and fix it.
Yeah.
So, but that's the kind of rapport that you had to have, in doing that. So the buyers appreciated that too. So that's where I kind of fit into the corporate world a little bit better. And I could dress up. I could dress up and go to a meeting.
You can play the part when you had to, right?
I could play the part, right?
Well, I know you contributed a lot to that environment over all those years. So I think it was well served for sure. So let's talk personal a little bit. So I know you've done a lot of creative things outside of your job just because you love being creative and you love art and crafts and those kinds of things. So what are some of the things that you did for fun on the personal side as you were kind of, this craft guru, creative guru in this big corporation?
Well, you know what? And I think you might remember this. Well, you do now because your kids go to school right down the way. But I lived in a 100-year-old Victorian home. Yeah. And I did some pretty crazy things to that house and on the outside. And for one thing, I had some little red chairs hanging in my front tree with a sign on it that said CHAIREE tree. That was my cherry tree. And I would have people stop and take picture and I'd go, what are they doing out there? Well, it ended up that we were on Google Earth. So people were finding it as part of that. So you know what? I had a glass church in my house that we actually, if you can believe this or not, had a baptism in. And I had a studio that sat next to my house that my friend Chris and I had completely redone. And that was just my creative space, as well as my house. Cause I did do some, I had mannequin legs for spindles in my house. I mean, I had crazy stuff.
I never got to see it on the inside, but I've heard some crazy stories, and I'm so glad you brought that up to share that part of your life with people.
Well, it was pretty crazy, and when I moved, I was sad that they took down the church and that they took down a whole lot of that stuff that was out there because I had a merry-go-round in the yard. I had flamingos everywhere. I mean, it was just nuts, but I loved it. I loved it.
It was
and I
you,
miss it.
Right? It was you.
It was. And I can't do that here at my house now. My daughter's like, they're going to throw you out of the neighborhood, Mom. You can't do that.
So you mentioned your craft room there in your creative space. So take us inside that. What was your craft room like there?
Oh my goodness. Well, you know what? It was a separate building that at one time, I think somebody said had been a garage, but it was absolutely, it was
like a
actually
studio.
separate.
Yeah, you had kind of your own craft studio. Yeah.
It was the Queen's Cottage because that's what I called it. And all the walls, my girlfriends, one time for my birthday, they all came over and they painted every wall a different color. I mean, they were pink and purple and orange, and they painted the doors. And then I do have to tell you though, because there was a bathroom in there that we had completely redone. Well, I bought a brand new commode and I spray painted it 24 karat gold, and the seat on it I had covered with rhinestones, and that was the royal throne. So everybody had to go see the Queen's Cottage potty.
Oh my gosh, that's greatness.
But it was just, I had pink cabinets hanging in there, and I had chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, and I had a bed springs that I hung from the ceiling, and it had pearls all hanging off of it, and it was quite a place.
Yeah.
It was quite a place.
Yeah.
I do miss not having that space.
a true creative, crafty haven that you created.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Oh, it was. Yep.
All right. And while we're talking about your personal belongings, you've got to tell about your car, because out in front of Michael's, anyone that ever pulled up would see your car. So tell the listeners about your very crafty car.
You know what? I had a white PT Cruiser, and I took it to the automotive place, wherever, and they wrapped it with a wrap in pink and black zebra. So the whole car was pink and black zebra until I moved back here to St. Louis, because my grandchildren shook when I picked them up at school. Or, we'd be sitting at the stoplight and everybody just be waving, and little 10-year-old girls, if it was parked and they saw me going to my car, they wanted to have their picture taken. So I did trade that car in, though, for a granny car.
Man.
I hate that.
Having the zebra print on the car, huh?
Yeah. And you know what? When I pulled into the place to trade it in, I think when the guy came, I said, now I have kind of an unusual trade in, and I could just see his eyes rolling in the back of his head. I thought the best thing would be is to pull up like at a Lexus or a Cadillac place and tell them that this was my trade in.
Yes. Yes. Okay. There's one other element to that car that I don't think you described yet. So tell about the headlights. What did you do? What did you do with the headlights?
Oh, you know what? You can still buy them. They're eyelashes for headlights.
Yes.
And they just stick on. Oh, I know.
So
if it was
for the
crazy,
people listening, I want them to picture this car driving down the road, pink and black zebra print with these huge eyelashes on the headlights.
Yes.
And when you saw that car, you knew Jo Pearson was coming down the road.
Well, you know what? I could find my car in any parking lot. That was for sure.
Absolutely. I bet that was easy for sure. For sure.
It was. But it was great fun. It was
absolutely.
It was just fun.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation on the Creative Retail Talks podcast today. Be sure to visit our show notes page for more information on today's show. And if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, reach out to me at clint@creativeretailtalks.com. Creative Retail Talks is all one word. That email address will also be in the show notes. Hope you have a great day.